Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to TSP TV. Welcome to 2020. We are in the first early days of a new year and less than a week into 2020. All kinds of crazy things going on around the world that we will not go into at this point in time and leave that for another day, another channel, maybe even another YouTuber to inform you of that. As we say, we are in a little bit of a code red here at TSP TV due to community strikes, but we are trying to bring you a little bit of content, keep the channel going, keep the thrift fam entertained the best we can. But some of the things that I have noticed in the coming and early days of 2020, a few articles that I come across on social media, namely Facebook, and I even think that Michelle Dion, aka Eternity 73 something or other, excuse me for not knowing the numbers there, Michelle, but Michelle Dion over at TSP News has been posting a lot of stuff, and I believe it was one of the articles that she posted about the cost of food is going to be rising quite considerably here in Canada this year. And just before the holiday period, I also saw an article on a potato shortage, that potatoes are going to be in a short supply this coming year due to the fact that the harvest last year wasn't as bountiful as it should have been. Now, whether or not that was to do with anything with weather modification, should we say, and leave it at that, who knows. But there is a coming food shortage, or the cost of food is sure to be rising, according to early articles. If or not that comes to be, who knows. But designing a food shortage might kind of for people that are in low income category, or under the poverty line, food shortages and the cost of living or the cost of food going up might not leave them able to maybe feed themselves. Now, unfortunately, I'm someone who lives on my own. I only have my own needs to tend to at the moment, and I've put together a little pantry of myself, something I called micro prepping. Something I started this channel on just over a year ago was, how do you prep if you don't have much money and you don't have much space? And we will have a little look at the pantry, because I've had a bit of a tinker and modification to its configuration. But on the screen in front of you, you will see some of the items that I keep in my pantry. Now, some of these items are what I call Sensi items, Sensi short for sensible, and what they need they have little need or requirements to cook these. You can pretty much open the can as long as you have a can opener and eat from the can. And maybe even, if you make a little crude fire, you can stick a can on the fire, remove the label first. Of course, that might be a little bit of a hazard, but you can heat cans up with not too much power or requirements to maintain the heat. It's already cooked, you just need to warm it up, as opposed to things like dried pasta or rice or dried beans, stuff like this. Even dehydrated food, you are going to need a little bit of water, or more water than need be, in order to cook them. So what I call our Sensi items are items that are going to give you quite a lot of calories, some of your daily room nutritional sources. They're going to cover some of those bases, as well as not requiring any additional cooking or any additional water to cook. Now, items like these potatoes are absolutely fantastic. Don't let anybody tell you that potatoes are bad, and don't ever choose salad over French fries, because believe it or not, French fries are far more healthy for you than salad, because bear in mind, most people drench their salad in fat enriched dressings. Caesar salad dressing has far more fat than a portion of French fries. But anyway, when we talk about Sensi items, we kind of look at our nutritional facts on the back. Now, really and truly, what we're trying to find is few zeros as possible. Now, you see here we've got zeros on the sugars and zeros on trans fats. That's not necessarily a bad thing in that case. You don't want to be having too much fat or too much sugars. But bear in mind, let's put ourselves in an emergency situation. Let's say, you know, there's been a hurricane or a tornado or something like that. The grid's down, the power's down, you can't cook, you can't, you know, get to the store to replenish your stocks. Government agencies have yet to arrive on the scene with handouts in food parcels. Not that you'd probably really want to be going and taking any handouts from the government if you are in that certain mindset. But anyway, you know, you want to be able to be providing for yourself, and you want to be able to be what you're providing for yourself. You want to have a little bit of sustenance involved. So the less zeros you see on here, the better. Now, potatoes, you see this is a little bit of a dented can. Sometimes dented cans might be a little bit cheaper at a store. A little tip for you, you know, it doesn't matter if a can's got a dent as long as it's not compromised. What's inside should be good long beyond the expiration date. So potatoes are a superfood, and the other reason they're a superfood is they're one of the foods that you have to eat a very little that will make you feel very, very full. Another item here we have in front of you are lentils. Again, a very inexpensive item. Most of these items cost $1 or sometimes less in the case of the little Vienna sausages. The Campbell's were on offer at $2 a piece. I picked a bunch up when they were on offer. But again, we talk about seeing as many numbers as you can on here. We've got a 0 on the vitamin A. That's not a bad thing, but we've got protein, we've got fiber, we've got carbs, as well as calories. And calories count in emergency situations. And the other thing about the lentils and the potatoes, they also have water inside them, which you can save for other cooking purposes, or you can use them to cook themselves. And by adding one of these with one of these, you can make yourself a very, very, very crude stew. Not a very appetizing, award-winning Michelin star stew, but it will be a stew that will have quite a lot of your daily requirements and nutrients covered. And again, you can combine these with other things like, you know, here we have, I'm not a fan of tuna, but you can get the cans of tuna. Here's some chicken. Unfortunately, this is chicken. It doesn't contain any nutritional information on the package, unless you can see it there, which I certainly can't. But you know, these are things that you can pick up very cheaply. Tuna is a great source of protein if you can stomach it. We've got a little can of corned beef here, and again, corned beef and potatoes, what's not to like? Vienna sausages, again, you know, we've got pork and beans here. We can add a packet of, you know, a can of these to that, and again, we've added some further protein to, you know, these aren't exactly the best or healthiest option, but it is going to fill you up. And again, we look at just a humble can of beans, what goodness you get here. You know, we've got iron, we've got calcium, no vitamin C, but we've got some vitamin A, we've got lots of protein, we've got carbs, we've got sodium, there's a veggie in there, there's a protein in there, and there's a fiber in there. You know, it's a very, very sensible item, less than $1. Most places I've seen you can pick beans up, and in the case of an emergency, these are going to be absolutely worth their weight in gold, probably more than their weight in gold if you're very hungry. In any emergency, one of the most, you know, I'm not saying it is unless it's a medical emergency, but in most emergencies, one of the most important things is to be able to feed yourself. And again, now, why, you know, food prices are still affordable, now might be the time to go out and maybe put a 20, 30, 40 bucks, whatever you can afford, on some canned items, just to put in the back of the cupboard, maybe for a rainy day. And if you don't ever get to use them, maybe donate them to your local food bank or something, if you need to. But having a little bit of food insurance is something Alaska Prepper talks about quite frequently. Is not a very, you know, it's not a stupid or foolish thing to be having on hand. And as I said, you know, some people on, you know, the low income, or some people who are on, you know, government assistance, welfare, stuff like this, money, you know, it doesn't go very, very far, and it can be a struggle to make ends meet. And some people do have to eat on this kind of thing, you know, each and every week to sustain themselves. Here, you know, I've got some other stuff here. Now, these aren't exactly cheap or inexpensive items, but Jack Links, you know, these are stuff you pick up at your 7-Eleven. You know, you put a bunch of these away, this is going to give you something to eat. And we've got some ready cooked bacon jerky here. This was actually a gift from Hoopties. She sent me a little care package a little while ago, and these fully cooked bacon is a ready to eat snack, RTE item, ready to eat. Now over here you can see in these gold packages, this is what I recycle from my marijuana orders. Now in here I have dried mashed potato, instant mashed potato. You just need to add water. Now serving suggestions on the packaging, you know, this is like the Betty Crocker brand, but there are many powdered mashed potatoes you can get, and the serving suggestion is to add milk and butter with it. If you don't have milk and butter, then you know you're gonna lose a few of the nutrients that they will give you, but this is still going to be filling. You can just use water to mix this. The other thing you can use this for is, you know, as a soup. You can make a very thin mashed potato and this becomes a soup. If you have a jar of Cheez Whiz, which I actually do have a jar of Cheez Whiz in my pantry, I didn't really want to start pulling everything out because it does take time to put it all back in, but you know, excuse me, you mix half a cup of this with maybe a little bit of half a seasoning packet from a ramen noodle, mix in a couple of spoonfuls of Cheez Whiz, and you've made yourself a potato and cheddar soup. And then if you have those little you know, some of this, perhaps you could break up a couple of pieces of bacon jerky on the top. You've made yourself a bacon, cheddar and potato soup, which is going to be very filling. Now here I have a bag of trail mix. Although it says trail mix on the bag, this is something that I do tend to keep in my pantry, but alas, it's something that I do tend to eat more than I save. Anytime I do put a little stockpile of trail mix into my pantry, I do tend to pick at it and demolish it over a period of time. But as I say, you know, it's not a bad item to have in your pantry for emergencies. And this particular package costs $2 from the Dollarama, and the entire pack of Nature Mix will give you 1100 calories, as well as all of these numbers. However, we don't have Nature Mix in this bag. We actually have 3 packets of ramen noodles. I crush my ramen noodles down from here, and this is another perfect item I explained to you as a great emergency source of food, because unlike rice and pasta, this is already cooked. You can literally eat it out of its packaging without having to hydrate. And if you check out some of my no-cook thrift store ramen or thrift store prison ramen recipes, I can show you a variety of ways how you can make meals out of this with the same ingredients that all taste very different. But basically what I do is I crush them down, and I can fit 3 of those into one of these bags, and it does save for time and packaging. And again, all you really need to do is crush up a box of noodles and add with a can of lentils, add the seasoning packet in, and you're going to get some calories. I think they're 400, in fact I know they're 400 calories per package. You also get about 8 grams of protein from a Mr. Noodle. I'm not going to take it off because it will make everything fall to pieces. Prepper Baby and Binocular Boy are precariously perched up there on the thrift store fireplace that is flickering. Maybe a little dull. We might have to change the batteries in not too different, but their rubber band broke and they are kind of perched there without any support and could collapse and topple at any time. So that's why we are not moving Mr. Noodles. But they do contain 8 grams of protein and 400 calories, and per 85 grams serving of ramen noodle and 85 grams serving of rice, your Mr. Noodle is going to give you a little bit more nutritional value. And it is also one of those things a little bit like potatoes that will fill you up once it's inside you. It does expand, but you know, you put a can of noodles with this a packet of ramen noodles with this can of lentils, and you've got yourself a very filling and nutritious meal. And as I said, add the seasoning packet into it to give it a little bit of flavor. And as I said, it may not be very delicious or award-winning food or even comfort food, but it's food that is going to fill you up and feed the body some of the requirements that it needs in order to function. And again, same thing, you can just crush up a packet of noodles and toss it in with Campbell's Chunky or any other soup for that matter. But this is almost like a complete meal. We've got some veggies, we've got some meat, we've got some carbs, we've got the broth, we've got some liquid. And again, you could even maybe add in some of the or make mashed potatoes and just pour the Chunky over the mashed potatoes for an additional booster to your meal, as well as adding a ramen to it. And you can mix and match. You could put the Campbell's Chunky, add the lentils, add the potatoes, use the water that's in the cans for additional liquid, throw in a couple of packets of ramen, and you've got a stew that will feed you for a few days. Again, not going to be the most award-winning food, but it's better than going hungry. And a little kind of principle that I kind of work to is like 1 can a day. So I think to myself, in an absolute emergency and I had absolutely no way to get any other food, or had no resources to purchase or buy any more food, if I had 1 can a day, how many cans of food do I have on hand and how many days could I last? And at the moment, I think I got around 150, 160 cans, as well as other additional items such as the instant mashed potato. I think I got maybe 250 servings of ramen noodles. I got quite a few of these kind of jumbo sausages. Now, again, these are things that don't have the nutritional value on them unless you can see them there. But this is something that will fill you up. And again, a jumbo meat stick with a ramen noodle is a meal. Not a great meal, but a meal nonetheless. But again, you could maybe chop one of these up with some potatoes, meat and potatoes. You're not going to go wrong there with carbs and protein, certainly in an emergency. Now, these are $3 a piece. They're not exactly cheap, but they are very, very good sausages. I have snacked on these and can tell you they're very, 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 very good, and maybe something that you might pass, when you're at your local convenience store buying your lottery tickets or cigarettes or zigzag papers or whatever. You're at your convenience store. Usually these are things that you see on the counter and maybe overlook, but in the times of an emergency, this is again worth its weight in gold. $3 that it costs. And maybe don't buy a lottery ticket, buy a meat stick, put it in the cupboard for emergencies. So that's a little bit of a look at some of the items that I do have in my pantry. And as I did mention, I got other stuff. I got a couple of bags of big bags of oatmeal that and I went for the minute oats again, because they don't take as much cooking. You can just hydrate them with a little bit of water. I also have dried milk. I have some soup bases, some instant pancake mix, stuff like this. And again, like stuff like instant pancake mix, you don't necessarily have to use it for its pancake mix. It is powdered egg, it is powdered milk. You can add it to a couple of spoonfuls in with your ramen to thicken up the broth, and it's going to add a little bit more protein and calcium to that dish. So what I'm going to do is hit you on pause, put all my stuff back in the pantry, and give you a little looky look. And maybe we'll talk a little bit how maybe over a week you could put together your emergency, in the case of emergency, how you could feed yourself over a week. As we've already mentioned, you could put 3 cans together with a couple of bags of ramen noodle to make yourself a stew that will feed you, or maybe a family of 3 or 4. It will give them a meal. But if you're on your own, that's going to give you maybe 4 or 5 meals that you can live off of 1 meal a day. And in an emergency situation, maybe it's not going to be possible to eat 3 meals a day. And if you can eat only once a day, that's better than not eating a day. And that's kind of one of the comforts you might have to get used to doing it, should we ever find ourselves in an apocalyptic shit hitting the fan situation. But more likelihood, you may be out of work, you may have personal injury or sickness, it might not see you being able to work, it may not see the funds coming in, and having a few cans in ramen noodles and meat sticks and beef jerky in the back of the cupboard, or in a little pantry like I have for myself, or whatever storage units you use to keep your preps in, that's going to come in extremely, extremely useful, and is certainly going to be one less thing to worry about, and a weight off the mind to not have to worry about having to feed yourself, as well as all the other things that you may have going on in your own personal situation. So as I said, I'm going to put you on hold. We'll have a little look at what I got on hand at the pantry and the recent modifications, and then we're going to wrap it up. So here you go, folks. This is what the pantry is looking like now. Give you a little scan there. We will get a bit of a distant shot or panoramic view before we finish this. But as you can see, I've pretty much just removed everything from side to side. So we've got the boxes over there next to my I could hang my coats and some clothes are up in there. It's like a little closet space. So we shoved the boxes up there, and as you can see at the very bottom, let's get in closer. We got 2 cases of MREs there, and there's 12 in each. There's 24 MREs there. That's almost a month's worth of food, and some of them do contain multiple entrees that at a push you could sorry, I just found a sock. Actually found 2 socks, so result, lost those, but anyway, that's going to provide me at least a month's worth of food if I had to stretch it out. As I was saying, some of them do have multiple entrees inside that you could have one a day if you really had to stretch this stuff out. But 1 MRE a day, that's going to give me a lot of dense calories, nutrients, carbs, calories and protein, and military grade, and I'm not so sure about the civilian grade MREs. They're actually designed to kind of sustain you for quite a little period of time. You may notice if you've ever eaten them. I sure have noticed in some of my many MRE reviews to date that you may be a little bit bunged up in meals that are ready to eat, become meals that refuse to exit. You may find some anaconda-sized turds 3 days later leaving your body after consuming an MRE. But in the terms of an emergency, that is going to be absolutely golden, because it's going to kind of stay in your system for a little longer and fuel the body that much longer than kind of empty calories. Now, the bottom 3 tubs on the right-hand side there, that's all ramen, as well as there's actually 5 full vendor cases of ramen there with 24 packs in each one. In each one of these little trail mix packages contains 3 individual ramen. I think there's like 18 in each tub, as well as some other repackaged ramen in there. I use some slightly bigger mylar bags as well, and there's a few kind of fancy different brands name ramens that were on offer, but there's another 30 or so ramen in the bottom of that. On this side at the bottom, I kind of got chips, like some banana chips. That's a fruit, some dry banana chips, some kind of bar snack type crackers, pretzels, nuts things, plantain chips, things like that, crunchy kind of stuff that also are pretty calorie and a little bit nutritionally dense, especially kind of the plantain chips. They're quite a wonderful source of nutrients. In this one, we've got like oatmeals, breakfast type stuff, some muesli, dried milk, things like that. I've showed you this before. It's probably same old for some of you longer watchers of my videos, but some of you that may be new to TSP TV, this is might be the first time you've ever seen the pantry. In here I've kind of got cookies, crackers, Harvest Valley. They Harvest Valley? I think they are the Harvest Valley kind of granola bars. A couple of bags of peanuts at the bottom there. This tub was full of trail mix and the peanuts, but I've kind of systematically demolished the 4 kilos of trail mix that was inside. Got about half a bag of that left that I'll probably polish off at some point. This one here, you've seen the gold packages. That's my Betty Crocker. There's probably about 15 of those, which have 4 servings of mashed potato in each. You know, so there's quite a lot of instant mashed potato there. I could even maybe think about taking all of the mashed potato out of the smaller bags and put them. I've got some more of the larger trail mix bags. This one on top is what I kind of keep my recycled repackaging in, so like the trail mix bags that I use for my ramen, and the gold packaging that I save from my marijuana deliveries that I put my potatoes in. I keep that there because it can always come in handy. So I kind of think it looks a little bit neater than it did before. This was the initial unit that I started my project with just over a year ago, and maybe I'll put a link to the video in and do some editing to other videos that may be of interest on this subject. But this is where it all started, just over a year ago, and I think I come back one day with around $20 or $40 worth of items that I spent at the Dollarama and the No Frills, and I try not to buy items that are too expensive. You know, I don't think anything costs over $3 in this pantry, with the exception of maybe the meat sticks that I have, which are in the top here. I don't know if you can remember the meat sticks there. Back in the summer we had some fun with those, but I have seen these on offer for $4 at the No Frills, but they were about $5 or $6 I think when I bought them. But there's 15 servings of it's bologna, I'm guessing would be the equivalent, or maybe just like a large hot dog perhaps. In here we've got some corned beef, some chicken, these little kind of pickled vegetables, because they're also things that you can just toss in with a ramen for extra flavor, and a few nutritional extras, beans in wieners, some kind of boyardee stuff there. These again are great. Sometimes you can get the kids versions that have extra servings of veggies thrown in, hidden kind of thing. If you can get those there, they're probably a little bit more sensible than just these. But iron, fiber, protein, carbs, all covered in a can of boyardee. More beans and stuff like that. On the top, luncheon meat, kind of the cheap Spam equivalent, the Rooster brand, which is quite popular here in Canada, and this was from the Dollarama, their version. And at the bottom here we've got some cans of ham, just like Michelle Can Ham, one of our Wench moderators. I've got some cans of peaches, some veggies, refried beans, and chili in the bottom of there, as well as a bunch of ham. So you can see, although it doesn't take up that much space, there's at least a month's worth of food, maybe more than a month's worth of food in just that one container. And if you just had room to fit that, that wouldn't be a bad place to start. And this is what I refer to as a micro pantry. You know, this is a little plastic storage unit you could probably pick up at your Target or Walmart, or maybe a Michael's or something like that, or maybe even on the side of the street. People do tend to chuck this stuff out, curb alert type things. But you know, you can see how I've utilized that there as my initial pantry, and over the year it grew and grew and grew, so we needed additional storage space. These containers came from the dollar store. They were $4, or they actually rose to $4. I think they were $3.50 when I first bought my initial ones. The cases of MREs are actually past their expiration now. They went out of date in October 2019, but I picked them up for $35 a case. That's 12 MREs for $35, around $3 a piece. In this unit I picked up kind of just before Christmas as part of the TSP 1 year anniversary. Unfortunately, we then entered a period of community strike. We couldn't upload, post, or do anything, so kind of put a little bit of a halt on those proceedings. But this was a unit I picked up from Walmart. It's pretty full, but not full. You can see in the top there. I don't want to open it up because it doesn't slide, but we've got room in the top. So basically kind of what we can do, like we've done here, is put some find some items that we can fit on top of each one of those drawers. This one here, that's kind of got my seasoning, some lemon lime juice, a little can of V8. There's the cheese whiz I mentioned, a soup broth, and again this is in a package. Did initially marijuana come in? Ziploc Mylar. Now it's got soup base in it. This is the powdered pancake mix that I mentioned, and again this is powdered milk, powdered eggs. We're not going to necessarily be making pancakes with that. In an emergency we can use that to thicken up soups and broths or some kind of crude stew. V8 probably should get more of these. These are great. You know, you can just, with one can of this poured into a packet of ramen noodles, you can hydrate the noodles with that can of V8, and then on top of that you get all the goodies that are contained in a V8 can. As I said, it's just some seasonings there to make things taste better. In the top I've got my MRE tray and a little bit of stick in there. some knives and stuff, like, you know, a cutting board, things, you know, cutlery, things I used to eat, some takeout containers that also can be used as plates. And I don't know if you can see there's a whole bunch of MRE accessory packets that I didn't use during the almost out of date MRE reviews that I did, because they're exactly the same in each and every ration. So let me kind of just zoom out a little bit. And there you can see how much kind of space it does take up. This is my room, there's my fan, little mirror. You can see baby peas therapy like that. Let's just go and show you something else as well, quickly, if we can do this. I'm not sure. Yeah, there we are. The Chia Pet, God, Danielle, there you go. I had to forget which wench French it was, but Danielle Howard, bless her, she sent me a little Christmas present, and it was a Chia Pet, and you can see he's starting to grow a little bit. So there he is, and I put him by the natural light, so it kind of simulates a little bit of sunlight for him. So he's starting to grow. That's a good thing. As I can say, there is the pantry. There's where I sleep. And here is the TSP studio. And the reason this can of lentils has been left out is actually I can't fit it in there. It's an extra can that was squashed up in the sides. So it's been a little bit of a long and boring video about nothing for many of you, and some of you may have seen this content before, but just as I recycle packaging, I can also recycle content. But as I did mention at the start of this video, that they're saying that 2020 might be a period of time that might see food prices rise and maybe items missing from shelves at your grocery stores. Certainly it was something we did get to see and become quite a familiar sight on social media news feeds during the summer last year, that many items were missing, and coincidentally many of those items that were missing from Walmart's, and they always seem to be from Walmart's, were Del Monte items. And I can't remember exactly what was going on with Del Monte last year, but there was something going on a little bit more than just these items being out of stock at stores. I think there was some subliminal messaging and advertising going on, because shill operations operate on many levels. Some of the things that you share on Facebook or Instagram did originate from a shill account, not necessarily a real life person. But getting a little bit off topic and digressing there, but trying to bring that into some corner content, that, you know, I'm a real person. I'm doing this YouTube channel as a little bit of fun, a little bit of a hobby, a little bit of something to pass the time, as much as it is purposeful. You know, it's kind of multi-purpose. If anything, I'm actually benefiting in the long run. I've put together quite a substantial pantry, as you can see, and you can follow that progress from day one right up to this particular video if you so desire to do so, and binge watch on how to build a micro Scentsy pantry and do some micro prepping of your own in this coming year. And part of the lesson that was involved with this little project in this channel in my pantry build was the dollar store is always a place where prices seem to remain the same. If you're lucky to have a Dollar Tree where items actually do cost only $1, unlike Dollarama where you do struggle to find items that cost $1, but they are usually genuinely a little less than maybe your big name brand store. They're not always the cheapest option, but they always are consistently cheap, and they are usually always consistently stocked with very familiar and regular items. There's not going to be a huge variety there, but you really can go to your dollar store as a one-stop, inexpensive prepping point, I guess, or prepping store if you need, or for all your prepping, not just food. They have lots of other items, cleaning essentials, medical items, personal hygiene. And they've even put together a bug out bag with items solely bought from Dollarama. The only item that wasn't from Dollarama was the bag itself, and that was a bag I happened to find on the street during some treasure hunting I did way back in the summer, which seems a long time ago in the dark, miserable months of winter. And it is early January. The year is less than a week on, and it is some time before we see the green leaves return to the trees and a bit of life and bloomage going on. It's very dark, grey and miserable at the moment, and January and February can notoriously be the worst months of winter in my short time in Canada. Well, that's not that short, nearly 8 years now, but again, going a little bit off topic and digressing, but some of you do just like to hear me talk, so sometimes I just talk for the sake of talking, for those of you that enjoy that kind of thing. But that's what I'm saying, that we're getting, there could be a possible shortage of food in the moment. Why don't you make it your New Year's resolution to maybe forget about joining the gym or getting Netflix or Disney Plus as a little treat? Start putting $10 a week into better use. Maybe don't buy lottery tickets. Go to your local dollar store or go to your local inexpensive grocery store and put that money to better use on buying canned or long-term storage items. You never know when you might need it, and in my time in Canada, through being out of work due to seasonal jobs, personal injury or illness, I've found myself in situations when there really has been nothing in the pantry to feed myself, as well as nothing coming in terms of source of income in order to purchase items to put in the pantry. A little bit of a conundrum, and know only too well that had I had half of the food that I have now on hand in those times of crisis or my own personal shit hitting the fan emergencies, that I would have been a lot better situated, or certainly a lot better fed than I was in those days when I didn't have any of the items that I now have on hand. And as I said, over a period of year, I've managed to put this together. But if you really, really wanted to sacrifice $100 and go to your dollar store, you could quite easily put together a decent amount of food supply that may be able to last you a month or more. So that's it, folks. I have rambled on for way more than I anticipated in this video about nothing, but it is a little bit of an introduction and maybe reason to start a New Year's resolution of your own, and rather than start something that you're not going to continue with, start putting a little bit of money towards building yourself some food insurance or a micro pantry of your own. Thanks for watching, people. This is a shit video production for TSP TV. We will see you in the next one, hopefully, unless we get terminated before then due to community strikes. But if we don't, we will see you again. Keep safe and stay thrifty, people. Take it easy.